What's up guys, it's Endymion, and today I want to speak about one of the more interesting aspects of Elden Ring that I don't see being covered nearly enough, and that is the existence of what I'm going to refer to as the Voidborn. Now of course, we're still in the early days of Elden Ring, and there's much that the community at large doesn't know yet, but I, along with many others, are trying our best to piece together the massive lore and story of Elden Ring. So if there's mistakes here, let me know in the comments below so I can do better in the future. Thank you. And now, let's begin speaking about the Voidborn, or the beings from the stars. The Voidborn seem to be, in my opinion, a form of alien-like beings that have invaded the lands between from the stars. The effects of the Voidborn can be seen in various locations in Elden Ring, from the massive craters with meteorites and the very real connection the stars have to glintstone sorceries. If incantations or faith can be attributed to channeling the power of the Erd Tree and to a further extent the Greater Will, which bestowed the Elden Ring on the lands between, then the stars and glintstone sorceries can be seen as the opposite of the Greater Will's power. In simpler terms, it would be appropriate to say that faith magic represents life or light, while sorceries are darkness or the stars. The literal biggest example of a Voidborn in Elden Ring is of course the secret boss Astel, natural born of the Void. According to its remembrance, Astel is described as a malformed star born in the flightless void far away, once destroyed an eternal city and took away their sky, a falling star of ill omen. With this in mind, we can confirm for now anyway that there are indeed alien or Lovecraftian eldritch-like beings that exist within the universe of Elden Ring, which is very reminiscent of FromSoft's previous masterpiece Bloodborne, which was all about cosmic aliens meddling in human affairs. But where did the Voidborn come from? And why did they decide to fall upon the lands between? While of course this isn't 100% explained in a straightforward way, this is a FromSoft game after all, there are some theories and ideas. One is that once Marika shattered the Elden Ring and the Greater Will abandoned the lands between, it could be assumed that with the Greater Will's departure, so too did the world lose the protection of its creator. And without the Elden Ring in its complete form, the godlike defense of the Greater Will was torn asunder, which allowed outside forces that were once kept at bay, now freely able to infiltrate and corrupt the lands between without interference by the Greater Will. After all, we do know that the Greater Will is categorized as an outer god, which when seen through the lenses of H.P. Lovecraft, the famed horror writer and major influence on Bloodborne, that an outer god is a being that exists outside the supposed realms of reality. They reside somewhere beyond the far reaches of space or time, where they live eternally and can influence the lives of countless beings and worlds impossibly far in distance. As to how these beings came to exist in the first place would likely drive a human's mind into sheer madness or oblivion, of course. Since we do know there are other outer gods for sure in the lore of Elden Ring, from the Formless Mother, which I will be making a video on in the future, so subscribe for that, to the unnamed outer god that supposedly bestowed the Scarlet Rot on Melania, leading to Caelid becoming like the state of Florida, we can assume that perhaps the Voidborn and the essence of their beings are also from some malevolent outer god, or whatever god or power or world they reside from. However, it doesn't seem that it wants to help the lands between and its people, but instead transform them into something or replace them. More on that later. There are various items within Elden Ring that gives us hints of lore, such as the meteoric blade, which states, a katana forged from meteoric ore to dispatch life forms born of falling stars. So this katana alone confirms that it was literally created for the sole purpose of killing aliens. That's metal, but there's more. We know within Nokron, the Eternal City, that there exists a race of beings known as the Nox that have direct connections to the Voidborn in the stars. After all, the only way we can access Nokron is once Radahn is slain and his gravity magic stranglehold is lifted, allowing the stars to resume their activity. For example, in this item description for the Nox Mirror Helm, it states, helm fashioned from a crystal-looking glass, one among the Eternal City's ritual implements. Worn by those committed to high treason, it wards off the intervention of the Greater Will and its vassal fingers. So this helmet states that the Nox and the influence of the Void were indeed powerful enough to cut off the power of the Greater Will, which supports that the Voidborn and the primeval source of glintstone sorceries directly opposes the teachings and purpose of the Greater Will and the Elden Ring. This is getting spicy, let's keep going. We can also assume that due to the vast infinite power of glintstone sorcery, it led to various sorcerers performing blasphemous acts to obtain even a fraction of the power of the Voidborn. In the talisman called the Graven Mass Talisman, it says, "The primeval current is a forbidden tradition of glintstone sorcery. To those who cleave to its teachings, the act of collecting sorcerers to fashion them into the seeds of stars is but another path of scientific inquiry." This suggests that the Voidborn, and to a larger extent where they originated from, houses a source of power so infinite that the scholars of Rea Lucaria were willing to kill their own and use their bodies to create relics that could amplify their connection to the Void, which in turn would satiate the outer god or whatever the power of the Void comes from. It should also be mentioned that the mimic-like enemies in the Eternal City are said to be perverse experiments done by the Nox to create a new god. Of course, these mimics wouldn't obtain godhood, but the unsettling fact that these mimics can transform into various life forms from people to giants, as you're seeing here, means that this power of the Voidborn seeks to not just transform the living beings of the lands between, but wants to replace them and act like them. So the alien-like Voidborn want to become us. That's creepy. We can even see the rock-like enemies in the Eternal City here that with their twisted squid-like faces, once they die, they fall apart and become puddles of mass, similar to the mimics. So the replication process has already begun quite literally under the noses of the people living in the lands between. Likely the Alabaster Lords are connected to the Voidborn, as the Alabaster Lord sword states, "A weapon unique to the Alabaster Lords, a race of ancients with skin of stone who were said to have risen to life when a meteor struck long ago." So the Voidborn have successfully infiltrated the lands between via the meteors that crash and the scholars who study its wonders. And Astel and the others like it, which weirdly enough have human-like skull faces, likely relating to that alien mimicry-like power I said earlier, means that while the Tarnished are fighting amongst themselves, the Scarlet Rot, the remains of the giants, and so on, underneath a land drowned in chaos is a threat infecting and growing in number without most of the populace even aware of its existence. A race of malformed beings born of stars, the essence of the cosmos, sending signals into deep space towards something. A race or a god that now knows the Greater Will no longer stand in its way. And this god, this Void, is coming. And it doesn't just want to destroy us, it wants to replace us and usher in an age of dark, or more appropriately, an age of stars. So, what do you think of the Voidborn? Let me know what I got right or wrong in the comments below, as with a game this large and unknown in terms of lore, I'm bound to get something incorrect. But thank you for watching. Please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing the video to give my life meaning. And thank you to my patrons as always for their continued support. It really does mean a lot. And I'm Endymion. More Elden Ring is on the way. I got some content on the channel already, so please give it a look if it interests you. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you in the next one.